Welcome to the Working Tools Podcast, where today we will be discussing Chapter 11 of Whither Are We Traveling? Let's try Freemasonry.
Ladies and gentlemen, brethren all, welcome to the Working Tools Podcast, a casual conversation around Freemasonry. First, it's important to note that our thoughts and opinions are our own and do not reflect those of our Grand Lodge or respective craft or concordant bodies. Please connect with us and ask questions via our website at theworkingtoolspodcast.com.
Today on the Working Tools Podcast, we have three-quarters of our usual hosts. We have Worshipful Brother Stephen Chung. It's Prince Charles Lodge number 153 in lovely Kelowna, British Columbia. I'm Matt Appel, and I'm a member of Mill Creek number 243 here and we meet in Motley Terrace, Washington. And we have Worshipful Brother Jarrod Dunham of Penticton number 147 in Penticton, British Columbia. So Dave, again, couldn't be here. He's spending time with his family or some such foolishness. So with that, let's dive right in. It seemed like when we were talking about the episode before we started that you guys had strong feelings. So I guess I will, rather than my usual takeover is, I will say, what are your strong feelings about this chapter? Aha, okay, good.
Oh, sorry. Couldn't hit for some reason my eye-hand coordination is bad and I couldn't unmute. Or maybe it's a sign. I don't know.
We were muting you.
This is the perfect way to summarize up the last few chapters with this whole concept of, every time we talk about our membership problem, it's like, well, let's try this and let's try that. And, build a new website because, this generation doesn't do anything unless they see it on the internet and stuff. And I'm like, how about we just go back to the basics and actually do what we're supposed to be doing?
Right.
Go to lodge, do our memory work, do our ritual work well, live by the standards that we talk about ad nauseum. Like, let's just, if set a good example and it will attract people.
Right. Practice what we preach.
Yeah.
It's like it's this in quotes here at the beginning of this chapter, I shall propose no bright new ideas, not one. All I'm going to do is advocate that Freemasonry remain Freemasonry. And if we've strayed from the traditional path, we'd better be moving back to the main line while there is yet time to restore the prestige and respect, the loyalty and devotion that once was ours. Right. And, it's so true. Why are we trying to reinvent the wheel? Freemasonry has existed for how many years now? Centuries, right? Like and it's funny because most of these articles that we read that challenge about the situations in lodge today, many of them have been written, 50, 60 years ago, right? And they're still applicable. So if they're still applicable and they were having the same issues back then, really, is there anything different need to be worried about doing other than maybe focusing on doing Freemasonry? What a concept.
So, in this, I have the same question I have for every chapter of this book. So, what does that look like to you? What would you have your lodge do, or a lodge do, that would be getting back to the real Freemasonry? Make Freemasonry great again, if you will.
Well, bring it back to the roots. Do quality work. Have practices. Hold yourselves to higher standards. Respect the traditions. Respect the history, and try to do your best to maintain that. And follow our teachings. I don't know it gets any simpler.
Well, there you go. Thank you for listening to the Working Tools Podcast. I guess so. Okay, so how your lodge has veered from the path of masonry. We spend my lodge, a fictional lodge, spends time and money on charity projects and doesn't do ritual well, and whatever the other points were, subsidizes other organizations, and their building looks like crap. What and their members are ill behaved in society. What concrete steps could one take to move this lodge along?
Well, it's going to take. Well, if they're ill behaved and you just made the worst lodge, didn't you?
That was, yeah, pretty much.
That's like,
I mean, pick one of them then.
Well, okay. Let's focusing too much on an outside charitable acts to as a definition of what it is that you do. So, I mean, that's all well and good, but is that really promoting our Yeah, I'm not going to go off on the charity one actually, because that's always my beak off. So you ask what we should do. Is I promote? Yeah, I know it sounds really stupid because I always say it's just follow the rules, follow the tenets. We talk about self-improvement. How many people actually can talk about concrete steps that they've taken to better themselves? The one I always bring up is what was the last book you read? Do you actually go out of your way to when something upsets you, or like I'll use an example here in town. Here in town, we have a bike lane that went in, and it is not liked by people in town. And, they're like, oh, there's better ways of spending the money and stuff. And so before I formed an opinion, I went into and looked at the financials of how it was paid for and stuff, and realized that most of the money we didn't raise. It's actually federal and provincial funds that were given to us specifically for this purpose. So rather than going off half informed about it and complaining about it, I went in and did the research and learned a little bit more about it. And I think that's one of the things I want to see people doing more of. And I think that's something that Freemasonry teaches us.
Yeah, and when I went and I did that same deep dive into that, I found out it was coming out of our public coffers in Kelowna, and that the guy who plans these goofy things doesn't drive. No wonder we're getting more bike lanes and losing all our parking spots. But I digress. Can you tell it's a sore spot? Yeah. Anyways, back to bringing it into Freemasonry. So it's like in this particular chapter, he lists off all these different things that people try new and different things, and they're suggesting that Freemasonry do things different and go out and take positions on public issues and centralize pattern Freemasonry after bureaucracy and all this stuff, and really and then it comes to a simple statement: why does not someone suggest that we just try Freemasonry, rather than all that reinvention of the wheel, right? It does stay, for me, it stays as simple as that, right? Try and live by the teachings that we preach, right? And I think I try to do some of that with respect to the education in our lodge anyways. We talk about the different components of our teachings, and we talk about them as a roundtable type discussion in lodge, and trying to do more of that hopefully will bring more attention to those things and hopefully change the focus. Little efforts like that,
For a chapter that I thought we had strong feelings about, it looks it's hard to. I guess when your strong feelings are, then.
I
Well,
think the issue is we have strong feelings about this, but our feelings have been sort of aired over the last however many episodes. Is that, we keep saying, basically we're repeating ourselves, because I find it interesting in here is he has this line that, Freemasonry has not been tried in the balance and found wanting, it has been found difficult and not tried. And I think that's exactly what the problem is that people come in, they expect it, they expect to go through the 3 degrees and that's it. They know everything. They've learned the secrets and they don't want to put any more effort in. And I think that is an issue we need to deal with, is that once you've gone through the 3 degrees, that's not the end of it all. That's just the beginning, and then once you've done your third prove up and it's, taken you however long to memorize and stuff, you're not done. That's not the last time you're going to have to try and push yourself to memorize stuff. It's just that this is an example of what's expected of you, and just, get used to it.
Well, that's one of the things that I try to make very clear in the process of the 6 steps to initiation. In one of the several meetings I'll meet with the candidates coming in, I let them know that, I've already given them, once I give them the address to the brethren, the section where it where it talks about the ideals of Freemason, and ask them to commit some of that to memory. I explained to them that, this is just baby steps in as far as memory work goes, because there's so many other pieces of work that need to be done in the various chairs and responsibilities in the lodge. And I explained to them that that's quite often how most of the membership learns the lessons that are taught, is by picking up the different pieces of work, committing it to memory, and having to participate in the degrees and delivering those lessons in whichever manner that is to the candidates as they go through, right? And I explained to them, I've been doing certain lectures, for 15, 20 years. And, sometimes, as a few years ago, one that I've been doing for 15 years, really resonated with me at that particular time in my life, because that's when I was, I guess, open to receiving the information, I suppose. So I do a pretty good job of explaining that that's part of their journey and part of the how they're going to learn these things, right? And yeah, I try to offset those expectations.
A great deal of life is about managing expectations. This is one of the things I've learned in my 50 years.
Yeah, and it's funny, I often get caught joking about this, but I tell people all the time, life's so much easier with lowered expectations, right? But in lodge, it's the one place where you shouldn't have lowered expectation, right? You should be higher, right? Lowered expectations means everything gets to be degraded and things start to go downhill.
Okay, I guess I would not suggest that one ought to lower one's expectations everywhere, but yeah, no, I agree. Higher expectations are important in the grand scheme of things here.
Right.
All right, so I kind of feel like, as Jarrod said, we've said a lot of these points before, and there's not necessarily a lot more for us to say. This is a pretty short episode, but unless someone has some sudden insight.
No, but I would like to add this last statement there, one of the statements in here. Through improvement and strengthening of the character of the individual man, Freemasonry seeks to improve the community, right? And I like that phrase.
There was somebody told me once that Freemasonry is a global conspiracy to change the world one man at a time, or something along those lines. I kind of like that one.
Well, it's pretty
because
good.
It feeds into the conspiracy theory.
Whatever works for you, right?
All right. Well, David's going to listen to this and he's going to go, "You didn't mention this and that and the other," but there it is. So overall, I think we enjoyed reading this paper, and I think we're going to do a wrap up episode next time with hopefully David will be around, and we can sort of broad overview what we talked about from the last few episodes. But I encourage people to read it. It's got a lot of interesting points in it, and or just listen to Jarrod speak it mellifluously into your ears. So with that, thank you all for listening to the Working Tools podcast. On behalf of Stephen and myself and Jarrod and the absent David, we thank you all for listening, and we look forward to talking to you again on the Working Tools podcast. Goodbye.